I think most of us could relate to Gridlock. Rush hour. Although this is to the extreme. Hello, Whovians, and welcome to my latest Doctor Who review, where today I review the third episode of Doctor Who Series 3, Gridlock, starring David Tennant as the 10th Doctor. Okay, so Gridlock, the basic plot is as follows. The Doctor takes Martha to New Earth in the far future, only to find that the entire city has become a deadly trap. Okay, so Gridlock. This is an episode that I didn't used to hold in high regard, to be honest. I kind of had trouble getting into it when I was younger. When I first saw it, I didn't hate it. I just thought it was kind of meh. It just bored me as a kid. I have to say, looking back on it now, I actually really liked it. I was surprised how much that I grew to appreciate Gridlock. I mean, for one thing, let's get this out of the way. The story itself, I know the story could be kind of a little bit difficult to talk about at the moment, considering that we're going through a similar thing in the world with the coronavirus pandemic, although we seem to be stacking the odds a bit in our favour. In this story, Novice Haim comes back, who was in New Earth, and she talks about a virus that spread and killed everyone in the Senate of New York, and basically New York is desolate now. There's no one there, and only the people on the motorway, they managed to save themselves from the pandemic, and they managed to retreat to the motorway, but they're obviously trapped down there, and below the motorway are the Macra. So the concept of the story is kind of interesting, and also how the face of Bo is giving his life, he's using all of his energy and giving his life to restore power as much as he can, but he needs the help of the Doctor. And we discover these people have been travelling for quite some time. There's actually a lesbian couple who have been travelling for like 23 years, and then there's a cat named Brannigan and his wife and their kittens who have been travelling for 12 years. And I mean, and they're not travelling very fast. They're basically sitting in their cars for most of the time. And the people who abduct Martha, they also have things like food and waste, and they sort of recycle everything. And it's an interesting thing to see how people's lifestyles have changed as they've been living on the motorway. But this is to the extreme. The first half of the episode is a little bit talky, I do admit, but once the Doctor starts going between all the cars, it does get kind of interesting, and I do think it ramps up and it becomes pretty fun to watch, actually. I do have to say, there is a lot of CGI in this episode, and understandably, because they have to create the motorway and everything and the Macra. But I would have actually liked the Macra to be done practically, maybe. I know it would have been a bit difficult given the when the car is navigating its way through the floor where the Macra are. But still, I don't know. I mean, just the CGI is very dated now. It wasn't that convincing, even for 2007, I think. I think Doctor Who's done better CGI. And for those of you who don't know, the Macra are basically like these crabs. They're basically these giant crabs who are aliens. And they're meant to be like these empire builders, but now they've kind of reduced themselves to just being beasts, as the Doctor explained. They've only ever appeared once before in Doctor Who, and that was in the Macra Terror in Patrick Troughton's era. And this is the only time they appear in the new series. I never really thought the Macra were amazing as villains. I thought they were fine. Obviously, the Macra Terror story has now been lost, and since then been reanimated. So, yeah, and I do own the Macra Terror on Blu-ray. So I think the Macra can be scary, but in this story, they don't seem to do that much. Not until the end, when Martha and the other two are navigating their way through the fog, and the Macra are trying to pinch them. And I believe the two people that abduct Martha are called Milo and Cheen, and they're actually a couple. They're boyfriend and girlfriend, and she's pregnant, and they're trying to get to the fast lane so they can get out and raise their baby, although it's going to take them 6 years because everything moves so slowly, which is interesting. It's interesting because they actually abduct Martha and they take her because they need a third passenger to get to the fast lane. And for some reason, you can only have 3 passengers to get there. I mean, at first you would think they were the villains of the story, but they're not actually. And it's kind of interesting how Martha does grow to sort of trust them, and they grow to trust her in the end. And she says, "Oh, you know, the doctor can help us, my friend." So they allow themselves to put trust in Martha as well. I also like the concept at the beginning of there's people in those little shacks who are selling the mood stickers. And there's actually quite an emotional scene at the beginning when this woman who lost her parents on the motorway comes in and wants to forget about them because she's so grief-stricken, and she takes a sticker and she actually forgets about her parents. It's actually kind of heartbreaking to watch that, and it puts it in perspective, like how dangerous this motorway really is. And that moment was a moment I actually forgot about. I didn't realise that was in this episode until just now. So that was a very emotionally powerful moment right there. Once again, the prosthetic makeup on the cats is fantastic. We've got this male cat called Brannigan who's married to this human woman, and he talks with this Irish accent. He's played by Ardal O'Hanlon, and he's actually quite a charming character. I quite like him, and he forms a nice friendship with the Doctor. We also have the return of Novice Haim. Yes, Novice Haim, who appeared in New Earth. She still cares for the face of Bo, and she's much older now. A lot of time has passed since New Earth, and I kind of like that this story is a sequel to New Earth and shows how almost it's almost kind of the reverse of what happened there. With New Earth, it was like the dawn of this new New York, and it was a brand new world, and everything was kind of flourishing. Whereas this, it's a bit darker and it's a bit more desolate and it's more run down. So we get to see the slums, and we get to see almost the complete opposite side of the world, which I kind of like, and that's the kind of the beauty of going back to the same place as well, which I think is really cool. I also really like the tension between the Doctor and Martha in this one, and how Martha's questioning the Doctor because he's lied to her about his past, and the Doctor's quite emotionally shallow about that. But obviously when the face of Bo dies, which is a very powerfully sad scene, and he says, "You are not alone," which we'll obviously refer to later on as well. Then Martha confronts the Doctor and he tells her the truth about the Time War and everything. So that's kind of a good ending, and it also shows that the Doctor is now able to trust Martha as well. The performances are really good. David Tennant is great. Freema Agyeman is also very good. The sets for this story are interesting because it's all very enclosed in these little cars. They're very confined, and they're not huge, but it's good, and it works very well. It's edited very well. I like the ending when the Doctor saves everybody, when they manage to open the roof and everybody drives up into the sun and they get to see New York. It's really quite beautiful, actually. And the return of the face of Bo. Yes, the face of Bo coming back for the third and final time, because sadly the face of Bo dies. And as I've already mentioned, he says the words, "You are not alone," which will definitely become more important in the series finale. That's for sure. But I did like the face of Bo, and it's interesting how he really quite powerfully, he sacrifices himself for New York, and he saves his life. And it's interesting to see how the Doctor has actually grown quite attached to the face of Bo. He has grown quite fond of him, and he's telling him not to go and not to die, and it's a really sad moment. Obviously, if you've been following the new series, then the face of Bo first appeared in The End of the World with Eccleston and Billy Piper. Then he appeared in New Earth with David Tennant in Series 2, and now in Series 3 he makes his final appearance, which is very sad, but yeah, that was a very well done scene. The music by Murray Gold is very good. I think this is some of his best music from the show. Absolutely brilliant. If I have any criticisms, perhaps some of the CGI doesn't always quite work. It is kind of obvious to tell where the CGI is, and I think the Macra probably could have done a little bit more in the story, but otherwise this is a really good, really solid story. And it's got some really great moments in it, and some great acting as well from Freema Agyeman as Martha. I forgot to mention that. It is a great rollicking ride, and it actually surprised me how entertaining it was, because I hadn't remembered it to be so, which is interesting. So it's definitely one that I would now revisit more than I used to. So to wrap up, I think I would give Gridlock a solid 8 out of 10. Series 3 hasn't disappointed so far. And next time we come to the first two-part story of Series 3. Daleks in Manhattan and Evolution of the Daleks. So, looking forward to that. Until next time, thank you all for watching, and as always, I'm Mr. TARDIS11. See you soon. Bye for now.